Amaka and Uche's wedding was a grand event that people from both families celebrated with joy. Uche, a successful engineer, and Amaka, a primary school teacher, were the perfect match in everyone's eyes. They had dated for a few years, and their love had blossomed into something everyone admired. When they got married, Amaka moved into Uche's family house, which he shared with his widowed mother, Mama Uche. Amaka was initially excited to bond with her mother-in-law, but she soon realized that her new life wasn't going to be as smooth as she had imagined. Mama Uche had raised Uche and his siblings alone after her husband passed away, earning respect for her resilience. However, she had some habits that were difficult to live with, particularly her lack of attention to cleanliness. The house was dusty, the kitchen was disorganized, and the bathrooms were not well kept. Amaka, who was used to maintaining a clean and orderly environment, was shocked but didn't know how to address the situation without offending her mother-in-law. Despite her discomfort, Amaka decided to start cleaning quietly without making it a big deal. She hoped that Mama Uche would notice her efforts and perhaps change her ways. Unfortunately, Mama Uche didn't seem to care about the mess and carried on with her usual habits, leaving dirty dishes unwashed and the floors unswept. Uche, who loved his mother dearly, didn't seem bothered by the state of the house. Whenever Amaka brought it up, he would shrug and say, "Mama's house has always been like this. It's not a big deal." But for Amaka, it was a big deal, especially as she thought about the future. She was planning to have children soon, and the thought of raising them in such an unsanitary environment made her anxious. Living with Mama Uche became increasingly difficult for Amaka. Every day, she would wake up early to clean the house, only to find it dirty again by the afternoon. Mama Uche would leave leftover food out in the open, attracting ants and flies. She would handle food with unwashed hands and leave the bathroom in a mess after using it. Amaka couldn't understand how someone could live in such conditions, and her frustration grew with each passing day. Amaka loved Uche deeply, but she began to feel resentment towards him for not taking her concerns seriously. "Why don't you talk to her?" she asked him one evening as they lay in bed. "I don't want to sound rude, but we can't live like this. What if we have children? What if they get sick?" Uche sighed, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation. "I'll talk to her, but Mama has been like this for years. She's set in her ways, and it's hard to change at her age. Just be patient. Things will get better." But weeks passed and nothing changed. Uche never had the conversation, and Mama Uche continued with her habits. Amaka began to feel trapped, unsure of how to navigate the delicate situation. She didn't want to disrespect her mother-in-law, but she also couldn't stand living in a dirty environment. One morning, Amaka woke up feeling nauseous and dizzy. She had missed her period and suspected that she might be pregnant. After taking a pregnancy test, her suspicions were confirmed. She was overjoyed and couldn't wait to share the news with Uche. When she told him, he lifted her off the ground and spun her around in excitement. "We're going to be parents," he exclaimed, his face beaming with happiness. When they told Mama Uche, she was equally thrilled. She danced around the house, singing praises and thanking God for blessing her with a grandchild. "I can't wait to hold my little grandbaby," she said, her face glowing with joy. However, despite the excitement, Amaka's concerns about the cleanliness of the house only grew. She was now more worried than ever about bringing a baby into an unsanitary environment. She tried cleaning even more rigorously, but it was difficult to keep up with the mess. Mama Uche's habits remained the same, and Uche still avoided confronting her about it. As her pregnancy progressed, Amaka's frustration turned into anxiety. She couldn't stop thinking about how dangerous it would be for a newborn to be exposed to such filth. She expressed her concerns to Uche again, but he simply reassured her that everything would be fine. "Once the baby comes, things will fall into place," he said confidently. 9 months later, Amaka gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, whom they named Kamsi. The arrival of their daughter brought immense joy to the entire family. Mama Uche was over the moon with happiness and insisted on helping Amaka take care of the baby. She would spend hours rocking Kamsi in her arms, singing traditional lullabies and smiling from ear to ear. However, Amaka's joy was tinged with worry. Mama Uche's hygiene habits hadn't improved, and now she was handling the baby with unwashed hands. Amaka tried to gently remind her mother-in-law to wash her hands before touching Kamsi, but Mama Uche would wave her off, saying, "I raised Uche and his siblings without all this fuss. Don't worry, the baby will be fine." Amaka couldn't help but feel anxious every time Mama Uche held Kamsi. She made sure to wash the baby's clothes frequently, sterilize her feeding bottles, and keep the nursery as clean as possible. But no matter how much effort she put into maintaining cleanliness, she couldn't control what Mama Uche did when she wasn't around. One evening, after a long day of running errands, Amaka returned home to find Kamsi crying uncontrollably. Mama Uche was holding the baby, trying to soothe her, but nothing seemed to work. Amaka noticed that Kamsi's face was flushed, and she felt warm to the touch. Alarmed, she took her temperature and realized that the baby had a fever. Panic set in as Amaka rushed to call Uche. "We need to take her to the hospital," she said urgently. Uche, who had just returned from work, agreed, and they quickly bundled Kamsi into the car and drove to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor examined Kamsi and told them that she had developed a bacterial infection. Amaka's heart sank as the doctor explained that the infection was likely caused by exposure to unclean surfaces or unsanitary conditions. She immediately knew what had caused it: the uncleanliness of the house, the constant exposure to dirt, and Mama Uche's lack of hygiene. Amaka felt a deep sense of guilt for not being more firm about the cleanliness of the house. She had been too afraid to speak up, and now her baby was suffering because of it. After spending a few days in the hospital, Kamsi was finally discharged, but the experience left Amaka shaken. She knew that things couldn't continue the way they were. Kamsi's health was her top priority, and if it meant confronting Mama Uche, then that was what she had to do. One evening, after Uche had returned from work, Amaka sat him down for a serious conversation. "We can't go on like this, Uche. Kamsi got sick because the house isn't clean. Mama means well, but her habits are putting our baby at risk." Uche sighed, knowing that Amaka was right. He had been avoiding the issue for too long, but now there was no choice. "I'll talk to her," he promised. The next day, Uche sat down with his mother and gently explained the situation. "Mama, we need to keep the house clean for Kamsi's sake. The baby got sick because of the dirt. Please, we need your help to keep things tidy." At first, Mama Uche was defensive. "I raised you and your siblings just fine without all this fuss about cleanliness," she said. "This is how I've always lived." But Uche persisted, explaining that things were different now. "Mama, times have changed. Kamsi is still a baby, and her immune system is weak. We need to make sure she grows up in a healthy environment." Mama Uche didn't take kindly to being told that her ways were wrong. She felt hurt and insulted by the implication that she wasn't doing enough for her granddaughter. "I've been living this way for years and none of you ever got sick," she said angrily. "Now you're blaming me for the baby's illness." Amaka could see that Mama Uche was upset, but she couldn't back down. "Mama, it's not about blame. We just want to make sure Kamsi stays healthy. She's a newborn and we have to be extra careful." The conversation didn't go as smoothly as they had hoped. Mama Uche retreated to her room, clearly feeling hurt by the confrontation. Uche was torn between his loyalty to his mother and his responsibility as a father to protect his child. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the house was tense. Mama Uche kept her distance from Amaka and Uche, and there was little communication between them. But despite her outward resistance, Mama Uche couldn't ignore the fact that Kamsi had gotten sick. Deep down, she knew that Amaka and Uche were only trying to do what was best for their daughter. One afternoon, while Amaka was in the kitchen, Mama Uche quietly entered the room. She stood there for a moment, watching Amaka wash the dishes, before finally speaking. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began slowly. "I didn't mean to put Kamsi in danger. I've lived this way for so long and it's hard to change." Amaka turned to face her mother-in-law, surprised by the unexpected conversation. "Mama, we know you mean well," she said gently. "We just want to make sure Kamsi stays healthy. It's not easy for me to bring this up, but I'm doing it because I love her." Mama Uche nodded, her face softening. "I love her too. I don't want her to get sick again. I'll try to do better." It wasn't an easy admission for Mama Uche, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, she made a conscious effort to keep the house cleaner. She began washing her hands more frequently, keeping the kitchen organized, and even helping Amaka with the household chores. As Mama Uche's habits slowly began to change, the tension in the house eased. Amaka no longer felt the need to constantly clean up after everyone, and she was able to focus more on caring for Kamsi. Uche, too, was relieved that his mother and wife were finally finding common ground. Kamsi's health improved, and she continued to grow into a happy, energetic baby. Amaka felt a deep sense of relief knowing that her daughter was now living in a clean, safe environment. One evening, as the family sat down for dinner, Mama Uche looked around the table and smiled. "I never thought I'd see the day when I'd be cleaning the house like this," she joked. "But I guess you're never too old to learn something new." Everyone laughed, and for the first time in a long while, the house felt like a home again. Amaka's journey taught her an important lesson about standing up for what is right, even when it's difficult. She had been afraid to confront her mother-in-law out of respect, but in the end, her persistence paid off. By calmly addressing the issue and focusing on what was best for her child, she was able to bring about positive change in her home. The experience also showed Mama Uche that it's never too late to change. Though she had lived a certain way for years, she was willing to adapt for the sake of her granddaughter's health. Her willingness to change not only improved the living conditions in the house but also strengthened the bond between her, Amaka, and Uche. The moral of the story is that open communication and a willingness to change are essential in maintaining healthy relationships and a peaceful home. Sometimes, difficult conversations are necessary to bring about positive change, and it's important to always prioritize the well-being of loved ones.